Hello, my name is Mike Sullivan and I'm a partner here at Studio 522 Productions. Studio 522 is a media communications company where we create digital content for online, broadcast, corporate, educational, and industrial purposes.
And I'm Jay Turberville. I'm one of the other partners, and of course I do the same things he just talked about.
We use the internet a lot to solve problems. In our industry, there's constantly problems coming up, not only internally but externally. And so we go online and we will not only do research, hard research like reading white papers or exploring different websites, but we also connect with people in our industry and outside of our industry to help solve problems that we come across.
Yeah, the internet's been a major window that opens up and makes a lot of what we do possible. The 3D animation area is a relatively small area compared to other industries, and so people are scattered throughout the world and the United States, and you wouldn't connect with them. You can't go next door, you can't go to a local club and talk to somebody like you might in some other area of interest. With 3D animation, it makes that community accessible. The internet makes that community accessible, and we use that to good effect. We get information on specific software, we get information on what's developing, we get information on how to actually use software to solve certain problems, certain technical issues, and also certain techniques. So the constant ability to use the internet and access people and other information is a huge boon for us.
Yeah, and it extends to our client base as well, because we have clients come to us who are developing new products or who have products that are already in the pipeline, and they need our services not only to market the product, but also they need the services in order to potentially help instruct new investors or to work with their manufacturers. So they'll come to us and we'll put together a package and we'll work with them to help solve some of these problems in their pipeline in order that they can get their product to market or possibly enhance the markets that they already have for their products. One of the major challenges that we face in our industry is the keeping up with the technology, hardware and software. We have a range of services we provide, so therefore we have a range of tools that we use to provide those services. And there's a constant evolution of technology and sometimes even revolutions in technology that we are faced with. So we have to be exploring, researching, bringing the tools in-house, working with them to make sure that our skill sets and the products we offer are going to be competitive in the marketplace.
Yeah, and part of that competitiveness is the pricing of these new technologies. Typically what happens is new technologies get developed, they drop the prices, so the barriers to entry in certain areas start dropping. When we first started almost 20 years ago, it probably cost you $60,000 to buy a Silicon graphics machine that would do 3D animation, do 3D graphics. Now you can buy a laptop at Best Buy and go download for free 3D animation software on the internet. So, I mean, in 20 years we've had this huge change. Now you add to that the internet itself and the fact that people can now work in India or some other place and do animation. The barriers to entry have changed not only economically but geographically. So it's made a huge change in how we have to approach and how we have to prepare ourselves.
As a matter of fact, the international nature, the international flavor of the work means that we're competing not only with the locals and people within this country, but we're also competing with people that are in India or in Taiwan or in Russia to produce projects that previously we would only be competing with people locally. I initially became interested in animation when I was a child. I was learning to draw, and I also was fascinated with cartoons and how they were made and how they were presented. And as I learned how those processes worked, I became interested in the overall animation world. Years later, still interested, I built an animation compound, which is sort of the old school Disney-esque way of doing animation. You take a film camera, you actually take acetate cells, which are little clear plastic sheets, and you paint on those sheets, layer them, and then take pictures of them one at a time, and then you play that film and you get the animation. Now that sounds great, but it is incredibly time consuming. So after having gone down that road and learned that one person being a production company is just not going to cut it, I was still interested in animation, but waiting for a better opportunity. Years later, the technology improved and the costs of doing 3D animation with computers came down dramatically. And the first sort of consumer level or prosumer level tools came out, and that enabled me and my partners to start looking at 3D animation as an option not only for something to get involved with, but also something to do as a business.
Yeah, and I came into it much later in my life. When I was younger, I was involved in photography. I used to take a lot of pictures. I had my 35 millimeter cameras, and I was the school photographer in high school and all that kind of stuff. And I continued to take classes at community college, and that was my interest. When Mike got involved in the animation stuff, I had already shifted more toward the computer side of things. And so when I saw the 3D animation, for me, if there was an aha moment, it was, wow, 3D animation is kind of like taking a virtual camera, putting it in a computer, and it's able to combine both things that I liked. I liked the computer stuff, I liked the technology, I also liked the photography. And the principles of photography apply in 3D animation, as well as lighting and so forth. So for me, it was kind of a very interesting amalgamation of technology and art that got me kind of excited about it.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things about this business, and I think Jay shares the same interest, is that it is left and right-brained. If you're someone who really enjoys doing creative work, like to paint, to draw, to do things with your hands, crafts, and you also enjoy technology, then this industry is a potential strong fit. But if you're someone who really loves the analytical side, the left brain type of activity, but you really don't enjoy the right brain creative side, or conversely, if you really love to paint and draw, but you really don't like analytical hard science type of work, you probably wouldn't enjoy this business, because it is a blending of those two capabilities that makes it work. And if you aren't interested in both, you might find that this world is a little bit frustrating for you.
Yeah, developers, they've worked on making modeling tools and other tools more user-friendly and more easily accessible. And they've accomplished a lot in that realm. But it seems like every time we see some new technology introduced and we go, wow, that sure is going to make that easy, then you actually go to apply it, you go, yeah, I mean, it's a good step forward, but it doesn't, you still need to know the technological things. You still have problems to solve, and you still have to be using that other side of your brain that can deal with the technology.
Yeah, and one other aspect of this, as far as paths to getting to this career, when we began back in the early 90s, there were really no organized schools that are providing training for animation specifically. Of course, there was film and video training, but we were looking for something that was structured, something that had been institutionalized, so that you could actually go through a curriculum and come out the other side with a skill set that might be close to doing something for a career. What we found was that there was only one institution in town that had anything close to a complete curriculum. And we were already beyond that simply by having worked on our own nights and weekends and so forth. And so what we did was we went ahead and just became self-taught animators. Now today, if you're interested in this industry, very different story. There's a wide range of different resources for getting trained in computer animation and of course film and video. But back when we started, it really wasn't an option. So if you're looking at this industry, if it looks appealing, I would recommend that you not only do the hard work yourself and get a hold of applications that you can work with at home, but also spend a good deal of time researching what's available through different universities and through different trade schools, because it could really accelerate the process for you and get you up to speed quicker.
Yeah, and even though there's now much better formalized education, I mean much better, it's just leaps and bounds ahead, the technology still changes fast enough so that, let's say you complete some course in a school, maybe you graduate from Ringling or one of the nicer institutions. As soon as you leave, you better be watching the trade journals. You better be monitoring, what the software companies are doing, because you have to continue to learn. So there is no, oh, now I've got it. Now I've got my basic, The principles stay the same, but the specifics, they change constantly.